Hi, Saen Higgins here, and in this video, we're going to talk about the differences between a trust and a living trust. So what is the difference between a trust and a living trust? In this video, we're going to show you exactly how that works. In this video, we're going to talk about the mysteries of trust, living trust, probate, all of those things. Dynamically, it's actually pretty basic, but I want to make sure you have a clear understanding by the time this video is done. Trust versus a living trust. These are the things that you need to know, and we're going to cover all of those in this video. And stick around to the very end. I've got a bonus for you that you're going to love. It's going to wrap all of this together. Okay, so we've got trust, we've got living trust, we've got irrevocable trust, we've got all of those things. What are we looking at? A living trust is kind of what it sounds like. It means it's a living trust. So if I go down and say, I want a revocable living trust, it means I go down there and say, I want these things in there. And then next week I decide I don't like my kids anymore. I go in and change it. It's a live document, it's living. That's what you're looking at when you're talking about a living trust. A trust can be set up when somebody's alive, but there's probably limits on how much control they have over that. So you'll hear things like a trust fund baby. That's exactly it. They're alive, but that trust is benefiting that particular individual. Or you'll hear 401k is actually a trust document. Not a living trust, it's just a trust. So there are set up rules that are inside that trust to determine the outflow of money or the availability of assets and what kind of assets you can put in or out of that. That's the difference between the two. Here's the key. They both avoid probate. That's super important. So if you have a living trust or you just have a trust where you have limited control inside there, a living trust that you can change at any time, when you die, and guess what? We are all gonna die, okay, that avoids probate. What exactly does probate mean? It doesn't mean somebody's done something wrong and all of this stuff. It just means that there is no plan. You can't just say, well, I knew him best, so I get all his assets. It's not gonna happen that way. Well, I was married to him. Well, I was his son. I was his favorite. He didn't like me, whatever the case is. Probate is set up when somebody doesn't have a trust, when they don't have instructions on what to do. And again, I've said this in other videos, but really a living trust or a trust is literally directions. Okay, this is exactly what I want done. It's as if you were sitting in the room and you say, no, I want this asset going over here. I don't want this one sold. This person gets it at this time. It's literally telling the courts, so to speak, exactly what to do. Guess what? If you don't have that written out, the courts will do it for you. And that is the last thing you want. One of the things that trust and living trust will do is they will have an element of privacy inside there. So in other words, if you're super famous or whatever the case, you don't even have to be super famous. If you just don't want your assets out there for public information, once you have them in the trust, there's a layer of protection within there. So if you have, like for instance, the first thing that somebody's gonna do, there's companies out there that are specifically designed on helping people that have won the lottery. This is a really good example. Okay, first thing they do is they have a choice. Do I want to be public or do I want to be private? By the way, if you ever win the lottery, be private. Okay, the people will come out of the woodwork. Just watch any documentary on that and it's pretty incredible. So the first thing they'll do is they'll set it all up in a trust. Now, typically, this is where the living trust versus the just regular trust. They'll put it in a trust where they really can't control a lot of this. So I had a friend of mine who's a friend of theirs had won the lottery. I had met him at a baseball game and I asked what they did. They said, well, we don't really do anything. We had won the lottery. And I immediately was asking a million questions. How'd that work out for you? And they said, well, it's been pretty easy because we know the results of people winning the lottery. So we immediately had this company they were introduced to immediately when they won the lottery, set up a trust. They go, we can't touch it. We can't do anything with it. Everything's been predetermined. We get this much money every single month, and part of it is we got season tickets to the Diamondbacks, the Arizona Diamondbacks. And so they, went to baseball games and they traveled, but they all live within their budget. No matter how badly they wanted to buy that new Rolls Royce that meant nothing to them, trust wouldn't let them. So it was set up that way. But it also gave them privacy, okay, so that nobody could go in there and go, oh, Bob and Sue owe all this money. And by the way, that's not their real names. It's not Bob and Sue. I don't even know. So they have all this money and they want to go after that. This is kind of a big deal. Now a living trust, let's say I'm Bob and Sue or whoever, and I won the lottery and I want to set up a living trust. What that is I literally have total control over that. So I can go in there and change the investment strategies and move things around and decide I want to buy that Rolls Royce, ridiculous things on that. But it still has an element of privacy. So, and if something happens to either one of us in either a trust or a living trust, it avoids probate. So that doesn't become public information. Probably the biggest disaster in public history that we see out there is Prince. When Prince died, he had no trust. He had no will, he had no nothing, and still his intellectual property is just floating out there. There's a bunch of people arguing over it. It's a complete train wreck, and that's what you don't want to do. Obviously, he was anticipating in his demise the way it went down, but there you go. And I know that's a big example of it, but this happens a lot more than you expect. And when you're out there making all this money, the last thing you want to do is create this is your hard work. This is hard to put together. It's you've done all these things, you're making all this money. You don't want to pass on a problem to somebody else, and that's exactly what it's going to be. And it doesn't need to be a lot of money. Even a few $100,000 is going to be a train wreck later on. I've seen this over and over again. Right now, we've got the biggest migration of wealth from one generation to the next than any other time in human history. Did you hear that? Human history. Okay, so there's more money being transferred from baby boomers to the next generation than they've ever seen before. And I get properties, at least 4 or 5, every single year I'm looking at, where the owner's deceased, the kids don't know what to do with the property. A lot of times they don't even want it. You've got there's millions of homes out there with 8-foot ceilings, popcorn spray deal. Everybody wants to remodel it. The kids are all arguing about it. Nobody wants to deal anything with. And I come in there and go, look, I'll give you X number of dollars. They're like, fine, I'll just take it. Because there were no directions. There was no fun. Because everybody thinks, oh, I must be rich to make this happen. No, it doesn't. Just start learning. Right now, this is a good first step. Now, it's extremely important. Whether you're doing a trust, an LLC, get some professional help. I'm not talking about Dr. Laura. You're not crazy. I don't care what they say. Okay. Just because I'm paranoid doesn't mean they're not after me, right? Okay, what I'm saying by professional, get somebody that knows what's going on. This is designed to do to really kind of introduce you to this. Because as you get working with me and as you go through this whole process, I'm going to pretty much say, what are you doing? How are you doing this? Is this being set up correctly? Because I'm going to tell you this, if it's not, it's going to be a wreck. So let's look at the differentiations between this. Now, if I set up a trust, that means I want it locked in. I don't want a lot of flexibility in there. I want to make sure that this thing's set up. It avoids probate, which means the courts have to make all the decisions. Most of you are going to be setting up what we call a living trust. Because obviously you're watching this, you're learning about financial literacy. So you go in there and you say, I want to make some decisions on here, but I want to protect myself from probate, privacy, and I want to have a shield of asset protection where people can't penetrate that to go after this money. Okay? That's what you're really trying to do. Now with the living trust, I have a lot more flexibility in what I can do with that. I literally put the directions together and said I could change it every month if that's what you want to do. You've seen those movies where the guy's signing the document right before he gets murdered or trying to sign the document and the whodunit type of things. And that's kind of what's going on there. He's probably got a living trust, and it depends on how the wind blows, depends on who he's going to give that money for. That's really what's going on there, okay? But they're also avoiding probate, where somebody else comes in and determines it, and there's some tax ramifications or benefits from that also. One of the more important things within a living trust or a trust is family harmony, okay? Again, there is no ambiguity of where this money goes. You've defined exactly where it's going to go, and it is next to impossible to even challenge that, okay? It's already set up there, and I've seen this so many times where the family's just like, I just want out of this deal. This guy's arguing with this. I literally this week, I'm doing a deal. They said, look, if you'll just give us $55,000 cash, we'll take care of the whole thing. I'm like, done. make it happen because these three brothers are arguing with each other. Don't let that happen. Listen, there's a lot to have here, a lot to digest. What I want you to do is I want you to take advantage of a brand new free course that I have on this. Just click the link down below. That's higginsmethod.com. Click that link down below, and I've got my gift to you is your course. This thing will walk you step by step through and help you and your family find that financial independence that you've been looking for. This is Saen Higgins saying God bless and see you later.